G'day folks, and welcome back to the channel, or indeed welcome to the channel if you've never checked out any of my videos before. So I'm going to be doing a series of videos on Octave Fuzz pedals, and I'm going to start today with the Behringer SF300 Super Fuzz, a unit that probably a lot of people would be familiar with. But before I start, I'm going to just give a little bit of a brief history of Octave Fuzz as an effect. So if you want to go straight to the demo, I'll put the time on the screen now where the actual demonstration of the pedal starts, but also you've got the little chapter markers down below as well, so you can have a look at the different things I'm doing before I get there. But anyway, bit of history. The Octave Fuzz effect really began with a guy called Roger Mayer. Roger Mayer had been an acoustic technician with the British Admiralty, and as a teenager he'd made some of the earliest fuzz boxes that appeared in Britain at the time, and he handed them out to people such as Jimmy Page and Jeff Beck, possibly even Eric Clapton. If you want to know more about that period and Roger Mayer, then check out my Loud and Dirty episode 2, The History of Guitar Distortion and Feedback. But Roger Mayer had seen Jimi Hendrix at the Bag and Nails Club, I believe on New Year's Eve 1966. He just turned 21, and he said to Jimmy that he made effects pedals and he'd like to work with him. And then later on went to another gig and presented Hendrix with an Octave Fuzz unit that Hendrix absolutely went bonkers over, and he overdubbed the solos to Purple Haze and Fire. That's about as much as I'm willing to play of those. See if I can even get away with that. But he later became closely involved with Hendrix and worked with him a lot, and Hendrix used his pedal that he dubbed Octavio. Mayer later started putting them out himself in the early 70s under the name Octavia. But the unit was different than a usual fuzz in that it incorporates a higher octave note that then folds over the waveform. Now, how this works is completely beyond me, and I'm really just parroting what I've read and heard elsewhere. I don't really understand the technicalities of this stuff, but if you can explain it in the comments, that'd be great. But all it is you get, in this case, higher octave overtone. And you can really hear it in the high notes. And because I'm going to be demoing 5 of these pedals, there'll be plenty of time to really explain it when I play. But as far as mass production goes, the Japanese were the first ones to grab onto the Octave Fuzz effect and really run with it. A bunch of units were produced all by the same company under the brand name Shin, Companion, Honey, and amongst others. And it was also incorporated into a thing called an amplifier psychedelic machine. But it was most famous in the later form of the Univox Super Fuzz. And all of these had a switch that could slide between 2 modes, the standard mode and one that scooped out the mid frequencies, and this will become important as I do a demonstration today. And flash forward to 1993, and the Bozz pedal company brought out the FZ2 Hyper Fuzz. Now, some say this is a clone of the Univox Super Fuzz, but I think they probably were catering more to the 90s sort of sound, which is, a lot of that metal that was going on at the time. I'm not really sure, but one really interesting thing about the Hyper Fuzz is that it also contained a clean boost amongst the fuzz. So you could also use it as a clean boost pedal, which is great if you want to boost a solo in a song without distorting the guitar particularly, or just to give your guitar a lot more attitude and bite. And that's really why a lot of people would assume that the Behringer is a clone of the Hyper Fuzz. But you can get on YouTube and see a lot of people shooting out a Hyper Fuzz and a Behringer Super Fuzz, and it does sound like there's a bit of difference between the two, just as there's a bit of difference between the Hyper Fuzz and the earlier Japanese units. So that's about as clear as mud, I'm sure. Let's have a look at this thing. We'll do an old-fashioned unboxing. Now, this thing cost me $50 Australian. I believe these are $20 in the US. At one point, they were even as cheap as $14. And I know that the Sweetwater website, it was their biggest selling pedal of all, I think in 2021. So a lot of you, no doubt, own this thing, and you're probably just having a look to see what I'm going to say about it. Here we are, the SF300 Super Fuzz. And there it is, looking quite familiar, very, very similar looking to the classic Bozz DS1. It's interesting they didn't go for that more sort of silvery Hyper Fuzz type of look. Maybe that was too obvious. There's a lot of paperwork in the box here. I'll have to just find the English version, which I seem to have done here. It just lays out all the controls. Yeah, it's all that sort of stuff. It does make mention at one point that it is very much classic 60s and 70s sounding fuzz. Plastic case, which some people don't really like. It's very light. What's sort of really cool, you've got treble, gain and bass. So treble and bass as separate knobs. A little bit out of focus there, but oh well. It does contain a battery, or you can put a battery in there. So we'll actually do that. I'll show you how to put a battery into the SF300. So there's the profile there. That's the classic Bozz style profile. The idea is you've got the pedal, which is above the knob, so you can't accidentally kick the settings out. Very, very ingenious design. But what's not quite so ingenious is the way that you put a battery into this thing. It's quite bizarre. I'll show you. So you have to get a ballpoint pen and stick it into one of these little notches there. See that? And that, boom, little spring-loaded thing. Freeze that, and then you take the front of the pedal off. And there's this very, very flimsy looking interior here with springs and whatnot. So we've got a little battery there. We'll clip the battery on. Snap it on there, and now to put it back, you put the spring back in place. And there it is, the lid. It just feels real cheap, plasticky in your hand as well. Just got to get that again, line it up with those little spring-loaded button things, and there you go, you click it back into place. Quite satisfying when you click it back into place. Quite interesting. Kind of works, I guess. Alright, so it's about time to plug this thing in. I'm going to start with the fuzz on full. Well, everything else is around about 2 o'clock. I'm rolling back the bass a little bit. This is mode 1, which is the full octave fuzz tone. Now, I think the guitar is in tune. It was in tune last time I played it, but if it's not 100% in tune, that's going to actually help demonstrate this. I'm going to explain why a lot of people hate the octave fuzz effect. You don't play it, it plays you. That will become more apparent as we go along. We'll just have a crack. Here, there, I'm playing some full chords. It is probably slightly out of tune, perhaps, and you can hear the wavering. What I'm going to do now is play a 2-note power chord and then introduce some more notes and actually play really tightly and also even bend the strings to get some gnarliness and some out of tuneness so you can hear the wavering of the note and just how unforgiving the octave fuzz effect is. So now I'll try some lead beyond the 12th fret. You really start to hear that extra octave coming through. And I'll do some deliberately gnarly bends. You get you to hear when it gets out of control. Yeah, there you hear almost an oscillating effect. Yeah, I've used it on one recording on a solo, and there was one particular bend I did that every day of the week it just sounded great, but it kind of almost sounded like a bum note because it was just doing that out of control thing. But in the mix, it actually sounded great. Yeah, just really wild. Probably time to roll back the gain around about 2 o'clock, and again with the mode on the 1. What I'm going to do now, again to just show you how crazy this effect is, I'm just going to play a standard C chord and you'll just sort of see just how wrong it sounds. What about the classic Hendrix chord, the E7 sharp 9? Okay, that sounded like complete balls. Okay, I'm going to switch to mode 2 now. This is where the mid frequencies are scooped. And this is the one that a lot of doom metal players really like. And if you look at a lot of demonstrations of this online, a lot of metal players are playing this and they play it in position 2. It kind of suits that. I'm not a metalhead by any stretch, so I'll let the metalheads do their thing and I'll bumble my way through it here. This is with the scooped mid mode 2. And I'm just going to tweak the bass knob to around about 1 o'clock just to compensate for the lack of the mid range. Now I'm going to talk about the worst kept secret in history, and that is the quote-unquote secret mode. That's where you play in between. This slider allows you to actually tweak it in between mode 1 and mode 2. It's not a hard slide. You can actually get it right in between the two and have a little flavour of each mode. So we'll check that out. Crunchier. That's a crunchier sound. That's actually a really good blend of the two. It works. It's definitely a thing. But I've discovered something further with the secret mode that I don't know if anyone's really talked about. You can actually readjust secret mode. A slightly fizzier sound than the other one that I just did before, and I'll prove it. I'll show you the waveforms. They are vastly different volumes and everything. So that's with the secret mode a little bit geared towards mode 2. So a lot more than meets the eye or ear in this pedal. Well, while I'm here, I might as well show you the clean boost mode. It's there. Interesting thing, the volume knob becomes completely disengaged when you use the boost, and what happens is the gain becomes the volume knob. So even with the gain at 0, it's still going to be louder than your natural sound. So we'll give the clean boost a crack. That sounded quite lovely. It's a great clean boost. So now it's time for me to give my rating, my star rating out of 5. I'm going to begin by saying I'm not crazy about the tone of the Behringer Super Fuzz. I find it a bit, I don't know, I overuse the word woolly. I don't know, something about it I've not really bonded with. And it's more extreme than other Octave Fuzzes I've got in really picking those notes out and really showing you the howlers that you're playing, even if they're not really that bad. I'd probably score this a 3 out of 5, just based on my thoughts of the general sound of it. However, the fact is you're paying $50 Australian, $20 US. I don't know how much they cost in the UK or Canada or elsewhere, how many euros, but it's an inexpensive pedal, no matter how you look at it. If you were buying a clean boost pedal with that money and you got this thing, it's actually not bad value. Plus you can put a battery in it, which doesn't seem like much, but I actually like pedals you can put a battery in. And just so many people love this, and doom metal people seem to really enjoy it. And it's just got so many sounds. It's got mode 1, mode 2, and in between 1.5 that even that is sort of adjustable. Like, it's got so much going on that's really hard to fault it. So I'm going to give the Behringer SF300 Super Fuzz pedal 5 stars out of 5, as the Arctic Monkeys song goes. So that's it. That's my rather long-winded review with not a lot of playing, but I just thought I'd do something a bit different than what everyone else does when talking about this pedal. And the next time I'm going to be doing a review of 2 other Chinese cheapies. I'm going to be looking at the Pigtone Fuzz, the Battle of the Greens with the Voodoo Octave from Joyo. So how will they stack up against the Behringer? You'll have to subscribe to get a notification that the next video's up. But other than that, it's been fun. So I will see you next time in the Battle of the Octave Fuzzes. Bye for now.